into another edition of the Blue White Tailgate Podcast. Mike Gross and Gross Rational Product, Frank Guadani of the York Daily Record. Their social media handles are right there. Don't forget, follow us on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate it. We also want to thank Wrapping Paper and Conshohocken for coming on board. And guys, it's kind of a positive week. Penn State took some positive steps on the football field. It was a close game against the number 2 team in the country, and at times, they looked like they could pretty much hang with anybody. Frank, start with you. We kind of covered it a little bit in postgame, but what a wild ending. That was a fun, game to write about, am I right? From our perspective.
Yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking as a writer because, you were working on deadline and I kind of had them losing the game, and then the fourth quarter comes and then I rewrite it as if they're winning the game. And then, of course, in 35 seconds to go, then I have to rewrite it again that they lost the game. But anyway, how about this? If you would tell me 2-3 months ago that Indiana would be number 2, I'd take it. Take me a moment to function on that one. But then if you told me that Penn State would be playing number 2 Indiana and beating them in the fourth quarter with Ethan Grunkemeyer as their quarterback, okay, so in some ways this was more impressive maybe than even what you thought. I thought it was the first time that I saw a Penn State defense look the way I thought it was going to look literally all season. I mean, and that's not to say they didn't have some deficiencies like stopping the quarterback from running through them again. But overall, it was like I saw a different team out there. I mean, especially defensively, and then throwing the ball down the field. So, I mean, maybe there's some hope that people have that the season can still have an ending that, I don't know, is palatable. I mean, I think people just want to see something of what the team was supposed to be. And I think it's been so frustrating for 5 weeks not seeing that at all in a lot of ways. And finally, you saw it. You saw Zane Durant and Denai Dennis Sutton looking like the players you thought they would be in early September, for example, and just didn't see it till now.
When we were down in the field near the end of the Ohio State game, we saw body language and we saw reactions and things that it was not crazy to think that this team is completely demoralized and beaten emotionally. And that was obviously not the case. That's a positive. I mean, and I think they sort of bottomed out and came out the other side of this spectacular collapse. And I kind of think the fans did a little bit too. The fans just, maybe they're tired of being pissed off and they just showed up and let's watch a football game and cheer for the team, because I was impressed with the support that Penn State got. And the other thing I would point out is a couple of things that have been so glaringly bad and so glaringly missing all year: throwing the ball down the field, and then the defense appearing to know what it's doing enough to play fast and loose and confident with an edge. Those things we saw, there's no doubt that there was some progress on those fronts on Saturday.
Folks, I just want to point out Mike Gross is celebrating a birthday here today as we record on Veterans Day. He looks very great with the black background, kind of looks like Steve Jobs. So we want to wish Mike Gross a very happy birthday. Mike, happy birthday. I'm not going to say how old you are. And also, happy Veterans Days. Want to thank all the veterans out there. Pennsylvania has over 650,000 veterans within the borders of the Commonwealth. So we tip our hat to all the veterans that allow us to do everything that we do in our professional and personal lives. Staying with a little bit of the positivity vibes, Mark Brennan, a good friend of all of ours, asked Terry Smith a personal question on his family and about his daughter Haley being his rock. And I just want to play this soundbite because I think it puts a lot of things in perspective about what college football is in today's world. Here's Terry Smith talking about his daughter Haley.
Haley's my everything. She's my forever child, and she's like the glue to our entire family. If the world had what she possesses, we wouldn't have any of these issues that are going on in the world. We wouldn't have war. We wouldn't have a shutdown government, things like that. She has unconditional love. She doesn't care that we lose or win. Every day I get the same hug and greeting when I walk through the door as if it's the first time she's ever seen me. And so that strength, it re-encourages me. It lifts me up. It helps me through the day. And it lets me know that this is just a game.
Kind of puts things in perspective from Coach Terry Smith, talking about family. And we're going to talk more about, the state of college football and perspective on that when we have Jay Paterno, former Penn State offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and also multi-time published author, as well as TV host, joining us. But guys, just hearing Terry talk about that, I don't want to say it like softened the mood of a press conference, because Terry went right from that soundbite and went right back into being short, quick, succinct, and to the point, being the open book he's been since he's been a head coach. I just enjoy his perspective in this world of social media and everybody calling everybody out.
Yeah, that was a great answer, and it wasn't really that long an answer. I think we could safely say Terry is less verbose than James Franklin, for better or worse. This has nothing to do with anything, but I just when he said she's my forever child, I've known some people that have had Down syndrome kids or kids on the spectrum, autism in their lives. And they say this lovingly and they say this with humor, but it's hilarious to have a little kid around the house all the time. It's so much fun, And I think that's kind of what a lot of people mean when they say what he said. She's my forever child.
I mean, you couldn't have given a better answer. I mean, I like it better the second time I heard it now.
Yeah, I did too. I thought that same thing.
I mean, it's not rehearsed at all, and yet he was so on point with his emotions and just being able to describe them. And I think that was such a welcome part of the press conference. And you're right, Andrew, he gets to the point quicker and more succinctly, and in a lot of ways, it's a lot more enjoyably than I've ever gone through a coach's press conference. Like we're wrapped up in 21 minutes, and there's usually a good bit to write about, just because he's kind of right there, right in front. When you ask a question, you're getting some type of answer that's not spun off on some other question or some other topic, or he just goes right to what you're talking about, right? For better or worse, believe him or not. I mean, you don't wonder where the question was by the time he's done answering.
when you write a story and you quote somebody, you're picking out the best stuff. In the case of James, and this is not to rip James, but in the case of James, you're picking out the best part of what is a long thing. You're not going to write 8,000 words where you're quoting the full quote. Well, with Terry, he's just giving you the full quote and not all the other stuff. It's pretty cool.
I going back to his answer on Haley, my favorite event to cover in high school sports was the Big 33 game. No matter what I was doing that weekend, I was getting to the Big 33 game, and a lot of that has to do with the Buddies program. It's great to be around. I have a good friend that's on it, Matt Joyce. He was a basketball manager at Penn State Harrisburg for Coach Friday, and I just, I keep in touch with him. The story was done 7 years ago. I keep in touch with him. So it's just wonderful, and I enjoyed hearing Terry's perspective on that. Go to the email bag, Chris in Chris in, I gotta look at this. Chris in Hoboken writes in, out of all the quarterbacks that are on the Heisman ballot, which one had the best performance against Penn State? Because it seems like after everybody comes into Penn State, they go right to the top of the Heisman ballot. So we have Moore.
Wow.
We have Mendoza. We have Julian Sayin. So which one of these guys had the best performance against Penn State? Because they're all a little bit different. They're all different, but they all are clutch in some way.
Well, I mean, the Heisman moments are Fernando Mendoza, because he didn't have the best statistical day, and maybe not even the best, certainly not the best, maybe overall game. I mean, Ethan Grunkemeyer still out past him, but his last drive was the best thing I've seen, I think, all season. I mean, Ohio State was just almost joining. It was almost looked like it was too easy, and maybe that's just a credit to how good him and his receivers are. Fernando Mendoza, there was nothing about what he did in that last drive that was easy in the least bit. He was getting hit and knocked on his butt, and he was making the kind of throws. Let me tell you what, the other performance that reminds me of that was 2020 at Indiana, first game of the year. Michael Penix looked lost for 3/4 of that game until the end, when he turned into a combination of Joe Montana and Dan Marino all at once. Penn State was running him into the stands, and he was making no-look passes. It's the most incredible transformation, and Mendoza reminded me of that with those two throws, at least those two in the end. I mean, that may turn out to help win him the Heisman Trophy, to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that it was the best performance, but again, I think it helped his Heisman candidacy without question. I think Dante Moore might have played the best game of the three for 4 quarters. Of the three guys we're talking about, and you're right with saying from Ohio State, he was just part of a machine, you know. And it did look
just all machine quarterbacks for the best of them, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I thought all three of them were great against Penn State. All three of them was very, very impressive. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question.
Yeah, good question. I left the fourth one off. I don't agree with Chris and Hoboken's premise of throwing Nico Lomleva in there, because he's not on the Heisman ballot, and he's not. So he
looked like Michael. He looked like Michael Vick that day against Penn State's defense.
He was huge. Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, where would his performance be among all those four quarterbacks?
Well, he was the least. I don't remember his passing game at all. I just remember him running. So I still think he's down to number.
I think he's fourth, just because watching that, it was more like, this is ridiculous from a Penn State standpoint than it was tremendous from. Although he was very good, I'm not down on him at all. But yeah,
I feel like this guy, and again, Kristen Hoboken, we appreciate the email. I feel like he's trying to work something in about next week. Well, look at how good these quarterback performances were. That's why the defense is bad, and James Franklin should still be the head coach at Penn State. So I'll look forward to that email next week for him. But he seems like he's.
Let's hear him address that charge. Yeah.
This has all the makings of an apologist email, and I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just or diehard blue sunglasses coming from this Chris and Hoboken. So Chris, again, we appreciate the question. That's what we are. We're going to pick on you a little bit when you email in, because that's what, we are. We're funny guys. We're funny guys. Funny how? Tell me how I'm funny. So what wasn't funny is Nick Singleton got back on the horse, and talking to him post game, for me, you saw joy in his face. I asked him about, his run was the first joy in Beaver Stadium since the Oregon game. So since the touchdown in overtime, that was the first joy that Penn State fans had in Beaver Stadium. And I asked him about, it being 1, 2, 3 plays to get out of this storm. He had 2 of the 3 plays. Apparently there's a 4th play. But going forward, I think, Nick Singleton's going to be very important for this team going forward to try and string together 3 wins here at the end of the year. What did you see from him and hear from him, more importantly, post-game, about his, mind?
It feels to me a little bit more like he was just used correctly, and he happened to be in the game at times when, the big run was just well blocked, and he's off to the races. Well blocked at the point of attack, and he's off to the races. And he's faster than Katron Allen, so maybe he made more out of that than otherwise. But I was more impressed with the pass play, because on that one, the pass play for the touchdown, 19-yard or whatever it was, because I thought he really did make some people miss there and show some ability to the vision thing a little bit for a running back. So yeah, it was good to see him do well, because obviously he's a guy who checks a lot of the boxes in terms of being coachable and being a hard worker and all that stuff. So, and he's super talented.
Yeah, I think with Nick, to me, he's been underutilized still in the passing game. I think that's a skill that he has that we saw, and we saw it at times in the Oregon game. We saw it a little bit at Ohio State. We saw it. I mean, to me, you gotta make use of that more with him. But here's the other thing: the passing game is important too, because finally Penn State was able to throw the ball down the field, and I think that helped loosen up the defense that Penn State could run the ball. And I think maybe his 59-yard run in part could be traced back to, well, Penn State was actually throwing the ball a little bit down the field by this point. Yeah. Maybe that opened things up for him to get the crease, to be able to do what he does. And if they can continue to throw the ball down the field, even at the rate they did against Indiana, I think that's going to help him and Katron Allen. And I think he took advantage, and kudos to him for never that we thought he was going to give up, but that he's still running, charging hard enough that he was able to do what he did at that moment. I mean, that was kind of, I think it was great for Penn State fans to see that.
And Terry said exactly that on Monday about how the passing sets up the run.
Yeah, absolutely. Frank Bodani, Mike Gross, Andrew Clista here. Email the show, BlueWhiteTailgatePawcast@gmail.com. Make sure you're follow, subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Guys, you allude to throwing the ball down the field. Question of the post game and answer of the post game goes to Mike Gross. 15 great seconds here with Terry Smith and Mike Gross in the media room post game.
Terry, other than Ethan maybe making a step forward today, what happened that you were able to throw the ball vertically down the field? The first time we've seen it in a long time.
We made calls to throw the ball down the field.
Now that's succinct there.
That might have been the most telling answer. I mean, and it's not even what he said. If you can see his face, and
wheels were turning for a couple.
Like, he took some time to think about what he was going to say. He wasn't smiling when he finally said it. It was like he was making a point, like, what the hell took us so damn long to call downfield throws, Mr. Offensive Coordinator? Like, there's kind of caught people, I think.
Before we get to I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I agree. That had to be the message that he was saying. And
that's unbelievable. How is that possible? That there is a disconnect, and that could be true, that Andy Kotelnicki is not calling downfield pass plays, and he wants him to. How can that be? Isn't that hard to wrap your head around?
It is, and it almost sounds like maybe they had this discussion at halftime.
They did.
They only hit it once in the first half, and it was for 41 yards. Yeah, well, there you have it. Nothing to add.
Raise your hand if you thought the wide receivers got open. I thought they went open a lot. I did.
They did, because when we actually see the ball going down the field, there was somebody ready to in position to catch it.
Huh.
Like, that's everything looked so different in that game Saturday. That
before we get to our guest, Coach Jay Paterno, author Jay Paterno, TV host Jay Paterno, I'm gonna play the soundbite from Ethan Grunkemeyer about, guess what, throwing the ball down the field.
Just seeing the windows, I felt good. Game one, maybe they felt tight. Game two, and loosened up a little bit. And then game three, I started to just see it better. And those guys are really separating at the top of the routes. I'm thinking of the one early on to Trevor. He did a great job. Had a tight corner on him and really separated well, and it makes my job easy.
Mike, at the Ohio State game, on the one at the end of the game where he fitted in the window before Caleb Downs, hit Dinkins, I thought, Grunkemeyer has a little bit of an attitude to throw the ball downfield when it's there. And when it's there. I mean, called, because I don't think Drew Aller would have fit in some of these balls or attempted to fit in the one at Ohio State, and maybe these ones against Indiana that Grunkemeyer did. Am I wrong?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? But except that you're never wrong, Andrew. Really, God love you. But yeah, I thought Grunkemeyer had a good game. I mean, I thought Grunkemeyer has been put in an unbelievably tough spot with this having to start his career as a starter on the road at Iowa and all that stuff. But yeah, I thought he made real progress. I thought he had a really nice game on Saturday, and yeah, we'll see how he does. I think he's figuring it out, and it can't be easy, but I think he's starting to figure it out.
He's learning. You know what I like about him is that he is the way he can kind of feather the ball in between layers of the defense. Like when we're sitting in a press box, we can see it where he's throwing the ball like over, say, the linebackers who are reaching their hands up, and he's getting it over them in front of the next layer of defensive backs. He's done that a couple of times with Kobe Howard, but he's did that at least 2 or 3 times against Indiana, and that's something Drew Aller did not necessarily, like you mentioned, attempt to do in the middle of the field like that. I can't. I mean, Drew had a lot of good things about him throwing the ball, but that was not something that I think he was real confident. We didn't see that. I don't remember seeing.
And that's the throw that you have to make when you're facing a zone and facing zone coverage. And the one that Grunkemeyer missed in that exact kind of throw was the one to Ross late in the game on a side.
Yeah, he was open.
That exact kind of thing. It's hard to fit it in between the two sort of layers of the zone. But yeah, you're right. He's pretty good at that.
Yeah, Drew did it a couple times on the final drive against USC last year, a couple times against Oregon. We saw glimpses of it, but it just didn't happen consistently enough. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. So time now to bring in our guest, very special one this week, former Penn State offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, Jay Paterno. Jay, I kind of feel like I leave a lot out of that biography. We could say TV host, we could published author, published columnist. But anyway, whatever the introduction has to be, thank you very much for joining the Blue White Tailgate Podcast.
Good to be here.
Jay, you witnessed Penn State football on the road at Ohio State, up close and personal. Right now, record-wise, obviously coming out of the Indiana game, people are probably a little bit more positive, saying, hey, Penn State's not as far away as what they are. Leaving Ohio State in the shoe that day, what were your thoughts about how far away, how close Penn State is to getting back to being able to compete at a major level?
I don't think we're as far off as people think. I mean, there's still talent there and everything. I was nervous in the summer. I thought people were really overvaluing this team, simply because as a coach, you go back and you look at last year and you go, this team was as close to being 8-4 last year as they were to being 11-1. They eked out a game against Minnesota. If Allard doesn't get hurt and Pavula come off the bench, they lose to Wisconsin. And the what was the other one? There was a third. Oh, USC. If they don't have Tyler Warren, they lose to USC probably by double digits. And obviously Tyler Warren's gone. And we know, everybody now knows how good he was. So I thought this team was not as good as everybody thought it was. And I just was worried about the expectations. And that obviously proved to be right. I didn't think, if you had said would they be 3-6 after 9 weeks, I would have said no way. But I think the 15-day span between 4th and 1 against Oregon with a 7-point lead and James Franklin getting fired just spiraled beyond what anybody, I think, thought possible. But I think this team's closer than people think. But it's going to depend on how many guys can they keep on board on the roster? What does that roster look like? I don't think anybody wins if there's a 40 or 50 person changeover at Penn State. So we'll see. I think, obviously last Saturday, they played about as well as they could and very close to beating Indiana, who's very good. Obviously, Indiana was missing some people, but as Signetti himself said, everybody's missing people this time of year. So a lot closer than people think.
Frank, you're up.
Jay, the last time Penn State lost 6 games in a row, you were on the sidelines. Can you talk about, I mean, college football has changed a lot since then, but can you talk about what that was? I mean, do you see any parallels at all between, or how different is things between then and now? Because your dad faced some pressure at that time too, you know?
Well, I think the thing is there's two things. Number one, much like this year, we were one score away in most of those games. We were losing games, playing really well. Now, the difference, we were playing really well defensively. We're not playing as well defensively right now as that team in 04. But, it was just frustrating because you were right there. And I remember saying to a friend of mine after we lost to Iowa, I said, if we get a win, we might not lose a game until 2006. He thought I was nuts. I said, no, that's how close we are. Now, I don't know if this team is that close. I don't know if they'll have a quarterback coming back with the leadership ability that Mike Robinson had, but I think Grunkemeyer has shown himself to be pretty capable, to do really well in some key spots the last 2 weeks. But I think the important thing is that you continue to work, you continue to believe, and we'll see what happens in the next 3 weeks, because all three of these games they can win, and all three of these games they can lose. So the next 3 weeks will be really interesting to see how it unfolds.
Jay, as you mentioned, being so close against Oregon and then having it fall apart as quickly as it did, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in any sport, covering sports, which I've been doing for a zillion years. Have you seen any on a small scale parallel to that?
Not really. I think the thing that was pretty telling was after that Oregon loss, when you looked at some of the interviews in the post-game media room, it was like a funeral. There was not a lot of upbeat quotes coming out of there, and you contrast that to Dan Lanning after they lost to Indiana. Dan Lanning came in right away with a smile on his face, basically, and said, all the goals we set out for ourselves at the beginning of the year are still there for us. And you did not hear a lot of that talk at Penn State, at least not from Coach Franklin. It was talk about, you can't get over the hump, all that kind of stuff, instead of just, hey, we got more games to play. And this was a really good football team that played really, really well and came in and beat us. So I was worried a little bit about the morale watching those things as we were getting ready to do our show the next week. I did not in any way anticipate that UCLA would do what they did the next week and score 27 points in the first half. So yeah, it was a pretty big fall off that cliff.
Jay, your most recent book, Blitz, the all-out pressure of college football's new era. It's a fictional book, right? But this is the era that we're in. I mean, it's crazy talk, numbers that are being thrown out. Terry Smith was asked this week about, possibly being a general manager going forward. I don't know, maybe it's CEOs next, and Jack Welch's CEO tree from Business America is going to be running college football programs. Like, how, now in this era, you look back to that book, how much of that book are you like saying like, hey, like I'm not that far off in this fictional piece about everything going on? And it's a great book. I think people are shocked when they first open it if they didn't read about it a little bit before on what school it's based on. But how similar are the situations?
Oh, I think, it's a fictional book, but it's what I call nonfiction fiction. These are stories that I've gotten from coaches, ADs, consulting on NIL, and a number of things that I've done that they're all real. So this is really what's going on. It's just, it would keep me from getting my car blown up by writing as fiction and setting it elsewhere. Or it also keeps lawyers out of the process when you say it's fiction. But these are real stories. And what's happened in college football is coaches are under tremendous pressure because it's constant. It's 24/7. A guy can put out on Twitter anytime he wants he's leaving the program, and you got to deal with it. And it's not just football; it's every sport. I mean, Katie Schumacher-Colley in the women's volleyball team, they're about to go on TV to play a volleyball match on Fox, and her best player, who had some issues, announces on Twitter right at the first serve that she's done for the year. And that becomes a distraction to everybody in the program. So it's that kind of pressure right now. So it's all based on very real stuff.
Jay, I have a couple questions that really are just, I'm curious about this as a writer. about this book. Number one, you created an entire like a media guide section about this team that you made. So where everybody's got a name and a hometown and a high school and everything. I just wonder what your mental process was like that, and reading it a little bit. I'll tell you who I thought of, and I wonder if this person was an influence on you. Is Tom Wolfe, because he was like his belief was be the village information gatherer, and then you'll have so much you'll have fiction that is based in nonfiction.
Well, yeah, Tom Wolfe is a guy I've read. Bonfire of the Vanities is something that the movie just did not do the book justice. Although I'm never going to complain when Melanie Griffith is on camera. But the point being is the movie didn't do the book justice, but there's no question. But I originally made up a fictitious school. And as I started to write it, I said, I can't keep track of who this is. And, does this fictitious school, are they going to play Michigan or Penn State? And what conference? So I just said, you know what? I'm just going to put it at Ohio State because everybody can relate. They know the rivalries. They know the history. I'd recruited the state of Ohio for 17, 18 years. So I was familiar with all the hometowns and the schools. So it became easy to kind of make up names and schools and that kind of stuff. And some of them were based on guys that I recruited. That came here. Some of them based on guys recruited didn't come here. A lot of the recruiting stories are real from those experiences. So, and there's some real characters in there. Ted Ginn is at Glenville High School, who's been at Glenville High School forever. He's in the book as himself. So a lot of those things are real. But it was, I thought it was just being easier to read if people had a section where they could flip back and go, oh yeah, that's the quarterback, and also it helped me keep everybody straight.
Sure.
Because when you're making up names, like every assistant coach's name, the initials match the position that they coach. So like the DB coach, his initials are DB. The running back coach's initials are RB, which made for a lot of people with B in their last name, but whatever it is. But that's how I kind of kept everybody straight as I was writing it.
Awesome.
And some of the guys are based on guys I coached with. There's one guy that's based on Bill Kenny with all the folksy sayings. Bill was always good for that.
Jay, as far as the coaching search, your experience being a coach yourself, being at Penn State, growing up with Penn State, now where Penn State is turning now to their next head coach, do you have any thoughts just from your background and knowledge? Who would you like to, is there a couple candidates that you'd like to see? Do you think would work the best at Penn State? Did you just have some thoughts on?
A couple of them, but they're dead. Like Coach Bryant is dead. My dad's dead. Guys like that. I think, no, I don't mean to be flippant, but because I'm on the board of trustees, I want to be very, very careful how I answer this question because number one, I don't want to put any pressure on Pat Kraft. This job's hard enough. And as we had trustee meetings last week, and there were trustees in a group and also individually asked me, I said, look, I don't want to get in the middle of this because I don't need to make Pat's job harder. And the truth of the matter is Pat Kraft could go out and hire God himself tomorrow. And there will be people that say he's too old. Or what's God's record against top 10 teams? All these things that go into it. But I think what's important is, we had Greg McElroy on our show a couple of weeks ago. One of the things he said, regardless, and this didn't really apply only to Penn State. His point was, define what your program is and go find the guy that fits it. Everybody wants to go chase the shiny object. I was kidding Urban Meyer when I was out in Columbus because I was with the Fox guys most of the day. And he and I watched the game, a good chunk of the game, standing next to each other talking about it. And I said to his wife, I said, I hear you're moving to State College. She said, we're done. And I looked at Urban and I said, well, I know what that means. It means we're done. Everybody's got the people they want, but I think it's got to be somebody that fits here. I think we have a history of doing things the right way academically. The thing that's changed is this. The big criticism with James Franklin was he never got over the hump. He didn't get over the hump. Well, what's the hump? Because if the hump is strictly a national championship, there's only 3 active guys in the country that have done it. So if you think you're going to go pick one of those guys away from Georgia or Ohio State, it's not going to happen. It's one of those things that you got to define exactly what you want. and find the person that fits that. And you know what? It may be somebody whose name we haven't even talked about, because 4 years ago, who thought Dan Lanning, when Dan Lanning got hired at Oregon and as a defensive coordinator at Georgia, who'd never really spent any time in the Northwest or in the Big Ten, people were kind of surprised, but it's worked out pretty well for him. So there may be a guy like that we don't even know about.
Jay, talking about defining what you want the program to be, which you just talked about that. I think there's a sense that you want it to be something a little different than the direction it's going, or that a lot of people in the community want to go. So is that a fair statement? And if so, what define the difference in your mind?
I don't necessarily know there's a difference. I think on social media there's some impatience. There are some people that have implied that I want to keep things in the 1950s or 70s or whatever, and they all forget that I was one of the two or three people that started the first collective we had. So I mean, I certainly have not been the person that's been trailing. We had no collective, and we started the first collective, and we were very aggressive in getting things done. In fact, that collective in January of 2023 got a call from the football office and said, and again, once I started it, I wasn't allowed to be involved on a day-to-day basis, become a trustee. But that is the collective that in January of 2023 was called and asked for a multi-million-dollar commitment to give all 85 scholarship football players contracts to keep that team together for 2023. And they got it done in 72 hours. Now, no one knows that because we didn't go out and put that out there, but that's the truth of the matter. So if anybody thinks I'm trying to hold the thing back, it's just absolutely not true. Now, are there people that want to win at all costs and don't care about academics? Yeah, those people exist at every school. But we got to remember that, this is an institution, of higher education. It's an academic institution. But I'm also realistic to know we got to be honest about what we are. We're running a sports enterprise on our campus, whether we want to admit it or not. As an old school guy, certainly I don't like it, but I'm also realistic to know what we're doing and support what we're doing. But it's got to be done in the right way. We can't sacrifice or put ourselves in a position where we're gonna threaten the academic integrity of the university as a whole. That is non-negotiable and should be non-negotiable for anybody. But I don't think that puts me at odds with anybody in the athletic department, or certainly didn't put me at odds with anybody in the football program. I just have kept my mouth shut and done what I could behind the scenes to try and help in ways that without telling everybody, just like I said, starting the first collective. Those were things that nobody asked me to do. We just took it upon ourselves to do it to try and help the program.
Jay, as an old school guy and one that's also forward thinking, this era that we're in, obviously I'm going to throw the word fair out again. People online, they're impatient. They're also unfair. You've experienced that firsthand from when you were coaching to as a trustee to, is something goes wrong, you get a blame and you're not even involved a lot of times. Same thing with say, right? We laugh about it, but it's true. Same thing with players because of the money. Like I heard people in the stands almost cheering when Drew Aller got hurt. To me, that's unfair. Because of the big money around coaches, the expectations a lot of times are categorically unfair. Like, can anybody win right now in college football? Like outside of winning a national championship, is there anybody actually winning?
No, man, I think the reality is this, the expectation, we professionalized the game. There's just no two ways about it. Coaches are making ridiculous amounts of money, and I don't blame them. I mean, if you can get it, get it. Players are making ridiculous amounts of money compared to what we're used to. And there are fans that now look at this and say, well, you're making all this money, you got to perform. And social media has changed everything. Everybody wants to get on social media and troll their, fans of other schools after the game. And if they lose, that just makes them angrier. And do not forget how much more, quote, invested fans are now, because online legalized gambling has changed the dynamic even more so. It is incredible when you hear what people are talking about at tailgates and what they're betting on and all those kind of things. If the team doesn't, we've given them a lot of anger points for them to get angry about. And that's just part of the way it is. And, even winning a national championship, if you don't cover the spread, someone's going to be ticked off. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. But we've brought this on ourselves, and I say we, I mean college football has brought this on itself. Administrations have brought it on themselves because they need the money. And you look around. I mean, look at the sponsors you're seeing in the stadium. There's an official American beer sponsor. There's a beer sponsor. There's a vodka and whatever drink. I think it's called Surfside. They're out there. It's not long. We've got sponsorships all over the place. So the money has really changed the game, and it's increased the level of anger that people have. And I think that's unfortunate.
Jay, it's been 14 years since your dad's been gone, but how often does he come up in conversations in your life with others, whether it's Penn State people or non-Penn State people? And what, after these years, what maybe is there a couple of things that kind of still come back the most? Are the lines that you hear the most, or the things you're asked about the most with your dad?
Well, I think now I get asked a ton about what would he think of all this, and what could he coach in this environment and all kind of stuff. And I say to them all the time. I said the one thing Joe always was adaptable. Sometimes not always the first to adapt, but you don't get to stay in the same place for as many years as he did without figuring some things out. If you look at when California passed the law on NIL, I think at that point, had he been still coaching, he would have called up some other people and said, look, let's be realistic about where this is headed. Let's figure out a way to not always be reacting to the latest judge's finding. Let's get people on board. Let's get some national leadership on this thing. And let's figure out where we land this plane, rather than having the plane landed for us where we maybe don't want it. And I look and there is precedent for that. In the early 80s, when the Supreme Court broke up the NCAA's monopoly on television rights, he was part of a handful of people that got together and said, okay, well, we're now in a new world. How are we going to make this work? And they put together a group called the College Football Association, and they made it work, and had a group of people being in that so similarly inclined in 2021. I think we'd be in a very different place than we are now. So I think that's one thing that I would say. But I mean, a number of the things that he believed in, a number of things that make your program great, are having a differential. What do you stand for that's different than everybody else? Because if you're only doing what everybody else is doing, well, everybody's doing this with their buildings, and everyone's doing this with NIL, and everyone's doing all these things, then you're no different than anybody else. And you have to figure out at some point what makes you different. And when you recruit people, I think if you look at Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman's done a great job of kind of defining what they are. I think Ryan Day has done a great job defining Ohio State being different in some ways than other places. It's paid off for him. I think that'll be the challenge of the next coach, whoever that coach is to, we were able to get some guys because that maybe we shouldn't have, because we had a differential. There was a guy like Michael Robinson, we got him. We were not having a great year, but he saw something in our program that he wanted that brought him here. The same thing with Derek Williams, Justin King, guys we got when the years we were not having great years. So I think that's got to be something that's going to happen with the next guy, is a way to say, this is what we are, is what we do. And also have the courage to just say, look, I'm not going to worry about what people say in social media. I'm not going to get a pissing contest with a skunk, because Joe used to say it all the time, don't get in a pissing contest with a skunk. And there's a lot of things that are still said on social media about me and whatever. And you can't swing at every pitch, and you just let it go and ignore it.
Jay, would you, apropos to a lot of what you just said there, would you like to see a commissioner of college football, and B, more of an NFL style general manager for Penn State's football program?
Well, I think the most important thing is, if you get a general manager, it's got to be a situation. And I'm not a fan of that term or whatever it is, but you have to be realistic about what you are now. You've got a salary cap that you've got to navigate. There is a school where I talked to some people recently, and they had been just an also ran in their conference to where they have a chance to win their conference this year. And I asked what was different. And this is not a school with tons of NIL money. It's not a school that has a bunch of things going for it in terms of history, tradition. But they moneyballed it. They looked and said, we could go drop $1 million to get a wide receiver, a quarterback, or whatever. But we found if we took that $1 million, we might be able to get 5 players that can help us in 5 different areas that have value that other people don't see. So I think those things are going to be a challenge for the next, however you organize this going forward. I think that's going to be really important to have that sense. And I think, in terms of a commissioner, I think something's got to happen. I think it's going to take some doing because the Big Ten commissioner has his role. The SEC commissioner has his role. The Big 12 has his role. The ACC commissioner has his role. And I think if all of a sudden they turn all that over to a central commissioner, then they're kind of putting themselves out of a job in some ways. And in some ways, they're yielding right now. They hold a lot of power. You talk about some of the things that are going on with the Big Ten with potential private capital deal. If there's a commissioner for college football, that kind of goes away.
Jay, I got one more, and I'm kind of stealing this question from Steve Jones. Every single week I see something in college football. This week it was the Capital Fund that says, you know what, I'm done with college football. These 2 longtime riders, they bring me back. They're my base. I keep coming back for more and more talking about college football. So I wanted to ask you, when you were writing Blitz, did you become like more of a fan of college football for the era that we're in as you were going through it, rather than the era that you were fully familiar with and being like, hey, I'm just throwing my hands up? So how did like the love of the sport kind of like translate into the book? And did you come out with more of an appreciation, even though this era might not be perfect on a lot of levels?
Look, I mean, if I could turn the clock back in terms of going back to what the model was, I'd do it in a heartbeat, but I'm also realistic. No, you can't go back. In many ways, it will always be better than what it is now because, you have kids now that don't even set foot in a classroom. I mean, they're taking online classes. They go to the building at 8:00 in the morning. They have meetings. They have practice at noon. They're in a computer lab taking classes. They never even, they're not even part of the community anymore. But I mean, it's what we are. And it doesn't mean I have to love it, but there's still the passion for the game. There's still on Saturday afternoon, there's, blue jerseys and white helmets with a blue stripe and white pants. And, that's still your school and you're still invested in that school and you still want your school to beat everybody else's schools. And you still enjoy you have the last couple of years, I've taken road trips to see games elsewhere. I've gone to Texas, Oklahoma. I've gone to Ohio State, Michigan. I've gone to UCLA, USC. I've gone a number of places. Went to the Oregon Ohio State game last year, just to kind of see some other places and get a feel for all those other schools. And you know what? It's fun to see that the people still feel passionately about their schools. As we mentioned earlier, maybe too passionately because some of them are over invested in their schools because there've been online gambling on their school, whatever it may be, or that, they feel it's professionalized. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be that tie. So am I more of a fan after writing a book? Probably about the same. But it's also realistic. And look, I'm also realistic enough to know that there were things going on back then where, I referenced, one of the guys talking about when he recruited back in the 70s and 80s, showing up at a motel across the street from a JC in Mississippi with a bag of $50,000 in cash and a gun. And that's a true story that I was told because that's how we did. And we'd hand out money to JC kids and get them to commit. And we carried a gun because in, 1982, if you're walking around $50,000 in a brown paper bag, that's a significant amount of money. And the booster's not going to want to hear that you lost their money. So, no era is perfect. And I think, even with some of the things that are going to be in place, if there is a salary cap and if there is this whole NIL mechanism to monitor, you're still going to have some people that go outside those rules and do things that they shouldn't do. And, hopefully the enforcement process that we have is able to kind of keep that under wraps. But as I've told trustees every day, I said, you can pass every rule you want. Coaches spend 24 hours a day trying to find loopholes in defenses, loopholes in pass protection, loopholes in recruiting rules. If there's a loophole, we will find it, we will use it, and you'll have to pass another rule. It's a constant patchwork. But we'll see how it goes going forward.
All right. I'm not going to ask you about all those official visits you were on. If you were 18-year-old Jay Paterno, where would you go be committing to go to school with all those Oregon trips, Texas, Oklahoma? So I'll leave that one pass. But Jay, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. Really appreciate the insight and really appreciate you talking about your most recent book. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Once again, want to thank Jay Paterno for coming on the show. Make sure you check out his book, Blitzed. Really a good read. Been out now for about a year and a half. It's, as Jay said, it's fiction, nonfiction based on real life stories that he's acquired. Penn State taking on Michigan State. CBS 3:30 game. It's definitely not the SEC game of the week, what CBS used to pay for. Sure, their executives are loving that. 3-6. It's the Smith Bowl. Jonathan Smith, Terry Smith here. Penn State has, right? Like that?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, big guy. Yeah,
I'm a funny guy. So, both a lot of L's in a row. A lot of L's, 6 in a row stacked up for both teams here. So, who's got the vibe? Who has the vibe going out to East Lansing where it's going to be cold?
Well, I think Penn State has the vibe just because of a lot of the things we've been talking about. They actually made some progress last week. I thought they had a really aggressive game plan on both sides of the ball. I think they're probably a little rejuvenated. I mean, I don't want to go nuts with that, but they're playing a bad team. And I think even though they have the same records, these two teams, I think Penn State is coming into it with a little bit from a little bit different place. I don't think in this spot, East Lansing is a terribly tough place. The Spartan Stadium is a particularly tough place to play. I think Penn State's going to win.
Well, if they come out with the same effort that they did, and I mean they win and they win going away to me because they did too many things right that you expected them to do. Like it wasn't that they just somehow reached out of nowhere and played well against Indiana. These were things you expected to see. You just finally were seeing them. Yeah. So if they come out with that same effort, man, I mean they should be the one that ends the 6-game losing streak, no doubt. So put your money on Penn State, right? 7-point favorites. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're gonna pick the game in just a bit. And just going back to like what you said, and I just want to tell everybody that the post-game interviews that I reference here, they're all available on the Blue White Tailgate Podcast YouTube page. And up there is Zane Durant is up there, King Mack is up there, Nick Singleton is up there, among others, after the home game. Talking to those guys, King Mack, Zane Durant, like, I don't think you're reading too much into them having, positive vibes coming out of this, because like Zane Durant was asked about, how are you staying like upbeat week in and week out? And he just goes, well, I'm process oriented. I know what I have to be able to do. And as a senior leader, we have to be able to get these guys ready to play. And I kind of asked that question about the team was down on Wednesday. Like we were in there on Wednesday for practice and it was not fun. It seemed like a dull practice. And he basically said that, like, you don't read into it because it was just that time in practice. We're still going through the work and there is a positive attitude that is brought up. Now, how much of that is coach talk, player talk to us in the media? That's all debatable. Kyron Hudson walks off the field before the alma mater, that was caught on social media, but I just don't think we're like reading too much into it. I do feel that this team has stuff left in the tank to prove something. Did you guys get that vibe?
A lot of moving parts on a college football team. I'm sure there is a lot of variety of attitudes about the way this thing goes. And what you have to fall back on is exactly what Zane Durant said. You're a football player. You spend the week getting ready to play a football game, and then you go play it. And based on last week, I would say that they have enough guys with that approach that they're okay.
And the thing is for all of their issues, they're at a much better position to me than Michigan State, which was on a bye last week, who came off playing their first close game in forever. They have been blasted almost every single week during their losing streak. For all Penn State's problems, Penn State did not get run off the field other than the second half against Ohio State. Michigan State has perennially been run off the field, and I don't think a bye week is going to suddenly fix their problems. The only thing would be, I guess, if I'm a Penn State fan, they have a new Michigan State has a new quarterback that threw for 300 yards. Can he run? Oh God, that could be an issue. But other than that, with everything we talked about, I think, I think Penn State's vibe is good enough to win this game. And if they win this game on Saturday, then you're looking at them being able to finish out the season with 3 wins in a row.
All right, from there, let's go right into picking the game. So, Frank, you already referenced it, 7-point favorite. Mike, who do you like in this game with the battle of the 3 and 6ers?
I will say Penn State 34, Michigan State 23.
Anything to look out for, particular in that?
Penn State wins and covers. I think I suspect that it's going to be more of a ground game thing. I think it's kind of noteworthy that the Penn State's week 1 starting offensive line all played 66 snaps on Saturday and all played at the position that we envisioned them playing at the beginning of the season. So maybe that's starting to come together a little bit.
Yeah, I think Penn State gradually pulls away in this one, actually. I mean, I know it's astounding to say that for a team that's lost 6 in a row, but I have like 34-16. I don't think Michigan State scores in the 20s. I think Penn State's defense, I think, actually, I like it because I think what you guys mentioned early on is that they just look like they can finally play the way they wanted to be able to play earlier, meaning faster, looser, which we thought was going to happen after Oregon. But anyway, I think that's the key too. And I think so they run away with their first win in forever, their first Power 4 win of the season.
Their first win in several narratives.
Yes.
Frank, I'm right with you. I had 34-20 before you even were going. If I would have went second, I had 30.
All the same ballpark.
Yeah, I had 34-20. One thing that was impressive for me on the defensive side was it seemed there were more blitzes coming from more random places. I wasn't a big fan of the Zakee Wheatley blitzing from 12 yards deep in the secondary and just getting to the line when the ball was thrown. I was a fan of defensive backs on the line blitzing right on the snap. So I think Penn State, Terry Smith has got the coaching staff to take a step forward to help the players put some of these wins there. So I got it, and I think a fourth quarter against Indiana, I think is just going to carry over on that. And by the way, can I just give myself a little pat on the back? Or, let me ask this. Who did you see on Twitter tweet out right as the game was starting, really like the vibes for the Lions, a W is in the cards against Indiana?
Well,
I don't feel like you were out of your freaking mind.
We'll give you some credit. However, a W was not in the cards.
It should have been in the cards. A couple inches. Yeah. It was in the cards.
Yeah.
So,
hey, you know what? You talked this whole podcast, and we didn't say much of anything about who is going to be Penn State's next head coach. That says something, right?
That says something. Yeah.
Nobody. Everybody on the board. Something. It can't be Jeff Brom. He just lost. Stock report. Once you lose, you're out.
That's right. The market report reference. Thank you.
And as Jay Paterno said, Pat Kraft has to hire God, and there's still going to be at least a handful of people upset on social media.
Or how about he said you could win the Natty and people will be mad because you didn't cover.
That's true. That's true. Great episode. I want to thank Jay Paterno for coming on the show, discussing his book and also kind of the current state of college football and at Penn State football as well. Guys, did we leave anything? Do you want to hit on anything else as we hit an hour?
No, I think we're good. The coaching search and all of that stuff is going to be an ongoing topic that we'll be able to chew on for months. I think we're good for this week.
Yeah.
Talking about a football game.
We're good. It feels good, doesn't it?
As long as I can physically get to Michigan State on an airplane ride on Friday, I will be pretty excited for that.
Just remember, I said on post game, you would have a federal budget and you would have a Pennsylvania state budget. And we'll see if those come true, but it looks like both of those are going to happen. I'm just patting myself on the back here this week. So for Mike Gross, Frank Berdani, I'm Andrew Klista. Email the show, BlueWhiteTailgatePawcast@gmail.com. Like, follow us, subscribe on YouTube. We really appreciate it. Thanks a lot to Wrapping Papered and Conshohocken, the best in your gift-giving experience, for coming on board. We will see you after the Nittany Lions, as all three of us pick, beat the Spartans in East Lansing on Saturday night for postgame. Have a good one, everyone.